Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Reveal Report, this special report on a Wednesday. We usually do Monday. I have been traveling and I'm back. See my background? It means I'm back in the studio. I'm back in Toronto, Canada. You can even tell a little bit about my tan. And guys, the weather is insane. Today it was snowing. We had hail. We had rain. It's April. It's April 2nd, and the weather here is terrible. And I just came from Florida where the weather was very nice, and I can't believe it. And it's bananas that it's like a couple hours away on a flight. This is happening. We're going to get into that, guys. We're going to get a nice tan. Thank you, Marissa. I appreciate that. Thank you, Kathy. You got to sometimes leave the country and get some sunshine. So that was a really good thing. And I was so happy to be there and do that and babysit the little puppy for a little while. Guys, we have a great show coming up. It's called Blackouts Coming. Where are they coming? When are they coming? What's going on with these blackouts? How would they attack us? A lot of questions. So we're going to try and talk about that and get into the details and see if we could shed some light on all these things. Guys, I'm going to tell you something I want to appreciate, and I want to thank every single one of you for tuning in and helping grow the channel. It means a lot. Please give us a like and subscribe if you're new and you want to participate in the chat. Just subscribe. Guys, like, please, because it helps with the algorithm so more people can see the content. Makes a big difference. So we appreciate that. Okay, want to do some thank you, some shout outs to a couple of people tonight. I got to tell you, I'm very impressed. Vincent C., a gentleman has decided to support the network on a Monday, send a little something my way on PayPal and said, hey, keep the show going on Monday. I know there's a lot of beautiful women that help you out, but I'm going to be one of the gentlemen to do it. So Vincent C., thank you so much. Of course, Stephanie S. today sent a little something, said, hey, this is for you. God bless you. God bless everybody. God bless Jessie. And this is to help out with the show on Monday. So two wonderful people. We have a gentleman. Guys, show some love for Vincent. I know we always have amazing women, but in the chat, give Vincent C. a hello and a thank you. Shouts out to Stephanie S. Coming through tonight on a Wednesday to keep this show going. Without them and others like Lisa M. and so many others, we couldn't do this. It would be exclusive to Patreon. So thank you to them. Guys, great show coming up. And I'm going to bring on my co-host, who is an author, by the way, and has a lot of books that are available right now. She's working on a new, I think, what do you call it? You get together and she creates this new program and she tries to teach it to you. She'll break it all down. Let's welcome Jessie Czebotar. Jessie, how are you?
Hey, great. With a special thank you to Vincent and the ladies. Thank you, everybody. But the special programs are workshops. So I've been putting out a lot of workshops online and almost done with the first one. So it's really been excellent. I want to thank everybody who's been participating in that.
Great. So again, at the end of the show, you'll give some more details on this and how people can follow and get to sign up to these workshops. And you are doing some live things too, right? Where people are getting to come and participate on a live workshop sometime.
Yeah, they are. They're actual live. The workshops as well as the coachings are live. So we'll talk about that at the end.
Sure. All right, blackouts, Jessie. People are worrying about it. How is it happening? Why is it happening? What's going on? Okay. So, I like to do a little bit of research, and I was digging deep on this because it's going around, and there's so many different directions for us to go. Let's begin with our first video. It's a few seconds. Take a look and take a listen. We'll begin to dissect, decode, and keep it going. Turn up your volumes. Here it is.
In 2024, the U.S. power grid faced 346 major disruptions. That's nearly one blackout every day. Right now, you're probably watching this on a charged device in a well-lit room, maybe with your fridge humming in the background. But here's the shocking truth. Experts are warning that 2025 could bring the most severe grid challenges we've ever seen. Last month, a single cyber attack shut down power for over 40,000 homes for 3 days. And that was just a warning sign. With aging infrastructure and increasing cyber threats, the Department of Energy predicts a 70% higher risk of extended blackouts in 2025. But here's the thing. Most people aren't ready.
So aging equipment, Technology is not doing very well. They're not updating it, and that's not good, Jesse. So
Cyber threats they brought out in there.
we're going to talk about that as well, and other things as well. Weather, again, has to do with aging. If you're reading in the chat, you'll see people, there's tornadoes, there's storms, and it's affecting the grid. In fact, guys, I'm in Toronto. It's a major metropolis, and just north from me, a friend of mine is living. There was a blackout. If you can believe it, there was an actual blackout. Thousands of homes and thousands of people had no electricity because of the weather in April. It's bizarre. Let me play this clip, and then we'll comment on that as well. Take a listen. This is just north of Ontario, guys. Here it is.
Good evening. The cleanup continues from a massive ice storm over the weekend that downed trees and power lines, leaving hundreds of thousands of people without power.
Tonight, some of those still in the dark while communities work to clean up the mess left behind. We start our coverage tonight in Barrie with CTV's Sean Leathong. Sean, what's the latest from where you are?
Well, Nathan, you can see the street behind me, and this could be almost any residential street in Barrie today. There's tree branches around everywhere. Schools have been closed today, and as you said, many people still waiting for the power to come back on. Branches down, power out. And now the work begins from a weekend ice storm hitting much of Ontario.
Well, it got bad Friday night, and we lost a lot through the night. And then Saturday, as the day went on, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse till, you know, basically every tree fell that could fall.
Over 48 hours, freezing rain building up along trees like this street in Barrie. Eventually, those branches started coming down.
Watching a slow motion train wreck, because it happened over about 48 hours, just crash, boom, crash, boom, crash, boom.
Yeah, it's quite the phenomenon, just watching branches drop in every single direction and wonder if they're going to land on somebody's car, land on somebody's house.
This house in Northwest Barrie is covered after branches fell from a century-old tree in the front yard.
Scary. We were all wondering, is this going to go through the roof? Are we protected? Are we safe?
Today, Irene Spalvieri is taking pictures for her insurance and trying to find help to remove the branches.
I'm phoning different companies to try and get the roof fixed, but everybody's busy dealing with this.
Across the city, crews are working to restore power while residents work to assess the damage.
This is Ontario. This is just north of the city. Here, Janina says there are still, is that 200,000 or 2 million?
Yeah, 200,000 people.
200,000 people without power in Ontario right now since Saturday. It's crazy. To go along, tornadoes in the Midwest right now. Weather is challenging. So one way or the other, it seems that it's going down. Let's begin, Jesse. Let's break it down from the first video and what your takeaway was from what you heard.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, there's a lot of plausibility as to what it almost is a complicated issue. I think it's getting attacked in so many ways, whether it's, you know, old equipment or, you know, cyber attacks or weather. You know, it seems like it's getting attacked from every angle and, you know, across countries, not just within the United States. And, you know, there's a lot of rumbling going on, people, you know, speculating as to what is really happening. Hear a lot of fear, you know, coming through the pipeline. But, you know, it's interesting because you see like a lot of the support services, a lot of those who would respond in crisis kind of being tied up right now. So who is helping people, and, you know, what are people to do about it if they're experiencing issues?
I mean, Sig here in the chat says, nothing to see here, folks. It's all normal weather nowadays. Do you believe this to be normal, Jesse?
It's very abnormal, I must say that, you know. I mean, yeah. I remember as a child, you know, you definitely in the Midwest got the 4 seasons. You know, for winter, we might get, you know, massive snowstorms that shut school down for a couple days. But, you know, it's like the past few years, literally, we had, you know, 70-degree weather in February. It's like, when has that ever happened? And then the next week there's snow again. It's like, what is up with that? I have to say it's abnormal.
I mean, this weather is insane. You wouldn't think in this time. But I mean, I saw it being in Florida come out over here, and it's crazy. So let's start from there. Obviously, the weather can affect these grids. It can affect the power structure, and it's
Correct.
super dangerous for everybody, including young families. Let's talk about the danger of young families with children or infants in the home, because
Or even
without
disabled or elderly.
disabled,
Elderly are some of the
perfect.
biggest affected.
Yes,
you
talk
know?
about that. That's great. Actually, let's talk
Well,
about the disabled first.
You know, some of the things that can kind of get scary if you're not prepared, like I encourage people, please make sure if you have elderly neighbors, people that you're aware of, check on them, because, you know, things I've heard over the years that can happen. You get elderly people who, you know, may not be able to get a fire source, fire going if their grid's down. You may get them stuck in electric chairs. That's a huge one.
Wow.
The big electric recliners. I've heard of people getting stuck in those before, and there's nothing they can do. They can't get out. So the other thing is if they're on oxygen or have nebulizers for asthma, things like that, that can impact. You know, if a lot of seniors are on Meals with Wheels or special programs, so if those are shut down because of weather and unsafe travel, that means they're not going to be getting meals. So the other thing is hydration, making sure that they are able to have a water source. You can get pipes freezing, especially if the water is really cold. So I encourage people, you know, make sure you're checking on your families that have small children, your families that, or, you know, neighbors that are elderly or disabled. They may need help. And a lot of times we can help by orchestrating those things as a community for those people. So,
Yeah, I agree with you, Jess. I think it's crazy times with the weather. Exactly what you said. The dangers you wouldn't even think about when it comes to the elderly. Let's talk about families now. If you have a young infant, I mean, if you don't have electricity, we got problems. Like you said, let's get into it. The heating.
how do you
the
keep
food.
them warm? How do you, if they're not nursed, you know, you get issues maybe with bottles, warming up bottles. You know, there can be a lot of issues with things, but usually local hospitals are a place you can go for help. Usually communities may have a shelter where you can help people get to, but some of these storms, if it shuts down roads and you can't get anywhere, you know, it makes it difficult to help people or get them to a safe place. You know, you may have to help plow them out or,
Wow.
you know, get them
Yeah.
from one place to another, but
I mean, again, guys, we're just talking about weather. This is just weather related. Blackouts, when you've seen the title, I didn't give a lot of context to it. Just blackouts coming, because they're coming everywhere. In a city near you, maybe in your city, it's happening right up the street from us, where I'm at.
yeah.
Right now, it's happening, blackouts. So it could come in all shapes or forms. We need to talk about how they can come, what creates it, what we can do to prepare ourselves from it, and what's the government going to do about it in their state or city. So these are very key things that we need to discuss. Let's talk about the power grid being at risk. I saw this interview. Here's a quick clip. This is going to shock a lot of people. I'm going to play this clip. I bet 75% of the audience watching right now didn't know this. So take a listen. Hear this clip. Here it is.
Let's talk about energy. I mean, are you aware of how weak our power grid system is?
It's pretty bad.
How would we develop more energy? I mean, from everything I've been told and read into and discussed on this show through numerous interviews, we are on the verge, it sounds like, of the grid going down. How would we fix that and develop more energy?
There's a lot to unpack there.
Mm-hmm.
There's an element that we can discuss that relates to national security. There's an element that relates to power generation. There's another element that relates to, you know, transmission and distribution. I'll begin with the national security stuff. We have a vast preponderance of our electricity transformers, especially the large ones, that are Chinese. Okay? It wouldn't surprise me if those Chinese transformers had a back door and they could be turned off.
We don't even check them.
That is super dangerous. And we need, and I tend to stay out of political discussions, but I sort of scratch my head when one of the first executive orders in the Biden administration was to allow for Chinese electricity transformers. And the prevailing thought was, oh, these are commoditized products, you know, who cares? And, you know, certainly the electricity companies wanted them because they were cheap, right? And they're looking for their bottom line, and the bottom line reflects in their share price, and their share price reflects in the CEO's, you know, compensation. I get it. But I think we need to do a very deep dive on where we're vulnerable.
The Biden administration wrote an executive order to allow people to purchase these electric generators from China. What he poses the question, is there a back door that they could turn it off? Let me get your comments. And what do you think? How scary can that be, Jesse?
Yeah, I think the biggest concern is that he, you know, allowed not just people, you know, it's not like it's individual homes. He allowed, you know, individuals in charge of the grid, you know, to have that authority to purchase things from another country. You know, I think that very much is a matter of national security.
Yeah, it's again. Now it could be nothing, guys. I mean, I'm just posing questions. I'm just asking questions.
You know, I mean,
I don't know. But what I will say, and this has nothing to do with the occult or the supernatural. I mean, this is just a topic here. If I am a leader of a foreign country, and the other country which purchases my products decides to hit me with tariffs, and I'm not happy with paying those tariffs, right? I could just as easily turn up the cost on the electricity grid that you purchased from us. There's a back door. I could turn it off to teach you a lesson. But would I do that? I don't know. That's the question here. Will they be vindictive? The fact that they have some type of power and control over the electricity, the electric grid, another foreign country in the United States of America can control a small city, a small town, and their electricity. And in an act of war, if they chose, I'm not saying they're going to, I'm just posing a question, if they chose and they were to turn it off, that could potentially destroy lives, ruin people. It would be astronomical.
It could be, but I think there's too much. I think there's too much at risk for them to do something like that. You know, when you think about how much, you know, business they have, how much interaction, how much product they have coming into our country, I don't think the risk calculated would be worth it for them. You know, I think that I'll just pose that out there, be the contrary point of view.
All right. That being said, let me rebuttal. They may not, but Canadians have seemed to maybe
they might
have maybe lost their mind a little bit. Let me update everybody. The Premier of Ontario, which in American terms would be well, if there's a state, it would be the head of that state or the head of store. So let's say Ron DeSantis, right? This Rob Ford would be equal to Ron DeSantis in Florida. So he has decided to go to war with the United States, specifically with Donald Trump. And he said basically what he said is, if you hit us with tariffs and it hurts us, we're going to overcharge with the power. In fact, we might even consider turning it off. That's a blatant threat from a Canadian politician to American politicians and American families. And of course, we got to blame somebody. So he would be a governor. He would be a governor, and he's putting it all on Trump because he wants the people to gang up on Trump. Now, if you think this is absurd and I'm making it up, haha, my dear friends, I have a clip. I want you to take a listen to what Rob Ford had to say. It's eerie. Take a look.
We also need to be ready to dig in for a long fight. We need to be ready to escalate using every tool in our toolkit. That includes surcharges or even outright restrictions on the critical minerals and electricity we supply to the United States. The critical minerals and electricity they depend on. Today, I'm writing to every senator, every congressman and woman, and the governors from New York State, Michigan, and Minnesota, telling them that these tariffs persist. If the Trump administration falls through on any more tariffs, we will immediately apply a 25% surcharge on the electricity we export. We will not hesitate to shut off their power as well.
I got a rebuttal for that, actually.
Please, Jessie.
We are a wealthy nation. You know, we have our own energy. We've just, you know, been capitalizing, taken off of others. I mean, I personally think we should see where things fall, but I think that we have nothing to fear. We have the energy. We can capitalize on it. You know, how many nuclear plants do we have? How many coal plants do we have? You know, how much oil do we have under our country? We have unlimited resources, you know, and I think that, you know, we should not be afraid to stand in that.
Yeah. Here we go, Vanessa. He can kiss our butt.
I like that, Vanessa. Yeah, I wanted to say something similar, but I didn't.
Yeah, and it says, you know, without the billions we give libtard Canada, they wouldn't be able to survive. So please stop. There is a lot of truth to that comment because we do know that the U.S. Gives Canada astronomical money. I think it was over maybe $1 billion. It could be maybe $1 billion to help Canada do what they do. And if they were to pull that away, it'd be in trouble. Now, today, the tariffs were put through. So Trump did tariffs and 25% on Canada. Yeah. So this Ford character now is going around doing the media runs. He was on CNN, CFA, all over the American channels, again, using fear-mongering to New York, Minnesota, wherever it was, and the other states about the power, saying it's going to cost each household an extra $100, equal to $400,000 a day to that one area, millions and millions of dollars. And all they have to do for them to stop is to tell Donald Trump to stop. So let me ask you, is it that easy? Is Trump going to fall to the pressures of Rob Ford and maybe others worldwide to also add tariffs? What are your thoughts on all this that's going on with these threats of tariffs and turning off? The whole idea is the electricity and creating blackouts. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I believe we have the power sources. So, you know, I think if they're going to, you know, come at us with that, I think it's a null and void argument because we have the ability to stand on our own 2 feet. They can threaten and scream all they want, you know, but it's not going to do them any good because we have the ability to stand on our own 2 feet. You know, I want a president that's going to enable us to stand on our feet. You know, we're not subservient to all these other countries. You know, we want to have alliances. We want to have good relationships. But, you know, we don't want to keep spending all of our money. You know, our taxes we're paying for these other countries. Like when you see the numbers, you know, that's coming out of our tax dollars. Why are we paying for ridiculous things? It's not even important things. It's not for their survival. It's not, you know, how much money are we paying for their, you know, their debt, their protection? Tons. You know, it's ridiculous when you hear what the money's going for.
Yeah.
You know, and it's time that all that gets set in order. You know,
Yeah.
there comes a time where we have to balance our country's budget. We have to fix our issues. You know, succeeding to this is not fixing the issue. The issue is that, you know, our power is important to our country. We need to ensure that for our citizens. So how are we going to shore that up? You know, that goes back to, we need to stand on our own feet and not allow it to be a matter of war, not allow it to be a matter of leverage. You know, it's time for us to stand, get our own power going.
I
So
don't
they can't hold it
deny
over us.
100%. It's something that should have been done in past administrations in the
Correct.
U.S. And you know, it's time. The one thing I will say, I mean, you don't have to like Donald Trump, but you got to respect, because everything he's doing is what he promised he was going to do in his campaign.
I mean, he's doing exactly what he
said,
promised. You know?
he told you what he was going to do. He basically
Right.
said this. So I mean, it shouldn't be surprising to anyone, but he did say this on his campaign. I'm going to do these type of things. Let's move along. Let's see what other troubles we can get from the grid. How else can it affect us, and what's going on? And a lot of interesting information out here. So turn up your volume. Let's listen to this clip.
Demand has never been higher for these racks and racks of powerful servers feeding the internet's insatiable appetite for computing in the cloud.
The reality is that the cloud is not up there somewhere. It's right here. We are in it. You're in the middle of the cloud as we speak.
And data centers like this can't ever stop. Streaming, social media, photo storage, and more recently, and requiring much more data, training and running chatbots like OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, and Microsoft's Copilot.
And you can feel the heat coming off of these.
Thanks to the generative AI race, data centers like this are springing up as quickly as companies like Vantage can build them. And that means demand for power to run them and cool them is through the roof too.
If we don't start thinking about this power problem differently now, we're never going to see the stream we have or the potential we have of this amazing technology that can truly change our lives.
One ChatGPT query takes nearly 10 times as much energy as a typical Google search, and as much energy as keeping a 5-watt LED bulb on for an hour. Generating an AI image can use as much power as charging your smartphone. Hyperscalers building data centers to accommodate AI have seen emissions skyrocket. And this problem isn't new. Estimates way back in 2019 found training one large language model produced as much CO2 as the entire lifetime of 5 gas-powered cars. And even if we can generate enough power, our aging grid is increasingly unable to handle the load.
If you look at the peak demand during the summertime, if the data center don't reduce their load, there could be a blackout.
With the looming question of whether we'll have enough power for the widespread adoption of generative AI.
Guys, that's a very important clip. It didn't even consider, because everyone just assumes immediately cyber attack. Forget that business. They don't need the cyber attack technically. Take a look at what they just said there. That the amount of energy that's used for AI and for these clouds of knowledge and information. I mean, Jess, how many people in the world have a cell phone?
Right.
We need to use the cell phone. What kind of apps do we have on those phones? What generates those apps? Where does the information come to generate those apps? By the way, I just want to mention, if I come across loud, I do apologize. I don't mean to scream. It could be the microphone. So if it sounds like I'm screaming, I'm not. I'm sorry about that. I just want to put that out there. Again, cell phones, all the energy that's used for all these that people have. Almost, I mean, in North America and many parts of Europe, almost every single person has a cell phone. So they're using that. And not only that, the apps that they're using. How about music? How about Apple? There's a cloud. That's not in the sky. That's a system that needs to power the energy. How about televisions? How about all the networks? How about satellite radio? Where does that information go? It has to be inputted into a computer, into a database. All these TV shows that are online, where does that go? Radio, where does that go, Jess? Computers, laptops, we're plugging in the internet. Where does that go? AI, all these systems that are creating, that we're using all this energy in the summer, hence summer. Why? Air conditionings. Now we got to turn that on and turn up the air conditionings. This is a problem. And I don't think people are really thinking about that. Comment, what are your thoughts? Have you even thought about all the AI and electric devices we use that power and use up so much energy that could possibly black it out?
I think there is, I think that it's very convenient. We get used to living with all of these accessories and, when you think about the drain every moment of every day, everything that you have that's feeding off that electricity, it's actually phenomenal that we can utilize so much in so many households, so many people. And now you even have the remote access where you can take it with you, because your phones, you're literally taking it with you, having it work as you're going from place to place. So, could it cause that? Absolutely. It could. So
yeah, I mean, it's insane, and we need to be careful. That's another way that the grid goes down. And if the grid goes down, what do? I have experienced this, by the way. It's crazy. But many, many years ago, there was a blackout in New York and Canada. And the mayor of New York at the time blamed Canada. I don't know if you remember this. It was a mess. No electricity, complete blackout, tried to blame Canada. The truth came out. It had nothing to do with Canada. It had to do with something up towards New York with the system that collapsed. Nothing to do with Canada. But the narrative was Canada for 24 hours. Now, I was looking around. I'm lucky because I was in an area, and I love barbecue, for the record. I love barbecue.
Right.
And I had, for the backyard, I had, like the lamps there, the outdoor lamps that you go camping with. So we had that, and no radio. Something was wrong with the radio. We couldn't hear the radio for whatever it was. Everything was down, unless you had a tape recorder with batteries. You could hear music on a tape.
Okay.
Unless you had TV wasn't working. Networks like that weren't happening. So we were sitting outside, made a little barbecue, and for a while there, neighbors started to come together.
Yeah.
Started to come and talk to each other. We started sharing food with one another, playing around. It was different. Many, many years ago, you would know your neighbors. Mm-hmm. You'd say hi. You would try to help your neighbors. It was a different time. Nowadays, you kind of walk into your home, you close the door. You don't know who your neighbor is. They don't know who you are. They don't really get involved. No one gets involved. No one knows anybody. That was lost. But during the blackout, many years ago in Toronto, I found that people started to come together, try and help each other.
Brought people together, and
Fascinating.
there's so many things. I mean, think about how many generations they had nothing except for, it's like they were up as long as the sun was up. When it got dark, that's when they were, laying down, going to bed. They had candles, if they needed to do something or get around. They came up with alternative heat sources. One of the most amazing ones actually that like I've seen is like you can take one of those little terracotta pots, and like you take the bottom of it, I've seen people turn it upside down, put like some pennies or something around, stack them, put that pot upside down, you put a little candle in there, and just that little thing can heat an entire room and keep it really nice and toasty warm. And it was like, really, like you could use a little candle and have that whole room warm. And it's like, do we need, we like the electricity, but can we survive without it? We can,
Yeah, I just find that the electricity, it's almost by design, it's pulling us apart from human interaction, human beings. You're not, if you're on a bus back in the day, and I'm going to sound old, but if you're at a store, you're on a bus, you're sometimes communicating, you're talking to others on the bus, you're making conversation, you're checking on them. How are you? I think empathy was very powerful, and going back even just 10 years ago. Now everyone is stuck on their phone. I mean, how many times you've been in a bus, walk into a mall, walk into a store, walk into a coffee shop? Everyone is living in this. There's hardly no interaction. You have 3 seconds. With the barista for a coffee. But it's gotten so bad for human interaction that you don't even need to talk to barista. You know what you could do now? Just you could order your coffee on your app, not talk to a single human being.
Pick it up and leave.
Pick it up, go back on your cell phone. We are living in wild times.
Yeah.
Folks, maybe now I'm gonna get backlash on this.
You're gonna give it to us, George, right? Give it to us straight.
Maybe we need one blackout a year and stop the electricity, stop the internet, stop the Wi-Fi, stop all the nonsense, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to your family, play with one another, get to know each other, because human interaction is minimizing. It's almost like it's by design. I got to tell you, I'm not saying it is, but it's interesting.
Could be. And some countries do some countries do what they call the load sharing. Like you have Africa where they have scheduled blackouts. Like they have to go without the electricity for certain periods. They plan it and people have to go without.
Yeah, it's insane. And I think maybe we need to redefine ourselves as human beings, because it's no, everyone is living in a cyber world. We're living in a cloud in so many ways. Look, we're online right now, live, going into different people's homes. They're watching, they're getting the information and so forth. Yeah. This was impossible 10, 15 years ago, Jess. Impossible. If we didn't have a deal on television, no one would hear this information. They'd be programmed, hence TV programming. They'd be programmed to what the networks and the elite wanted them to see and hear. That's a fact.
That's true.
Yeah. Good comment here from Gigi. Technology is great, but it's time to remember old school ways.
I like that, Gigi.
I agree. Print your phone contacts and any important info you have electronically. Do not keep your passwords on your phone. I agree with Gigi. You should have a printout of the most important people you need to call. That's key. In information, you should have that. But near the end of the show, we're going to get into things that you should have anyway, regardless if a blackout was to happen. But we've covered so many different things already in the show on how blackouts can happen and what's going on. And it's pretty wild. But now comes the attacks. We talked about weather. We talked about aging. We talked about overpowering, too many things being used that could bring down the grid. Let's see what else could possibly bring down the grid and bring blackouts. Take a look.
A power outage. So imagine power outage happens. No light, no fridge, food is no longer good, no phone charger, phone is done, no internet. What happens to your life? FYI, come on, Pat. That would never happen to us. So let me give you our score on how good we're doing with power energy system. The American Society of Civil Engineers, which gave the U.S. energy system a C- on great on its 2021 infrastructure report card, said that the grid investment trends will eventually lead to a funding gap of almost $200 billion in 2029. And also in 2021, threat assessment from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence stated that Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea have the capability to cause harm to the energy grid. What? Also at the same time, the Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm confirmed that America's adversaries possess the capability to shut down the grid. What?
That's concern, if other countries possess that authority or power to shut down the grid,
Early in the show, we saw Canadian politician Ford say that he has no problem turning off the electricity. Yeah. I mean, is he insane? But he'll do it. He says that he'll do what he's got to do. I mean, obviously, that's an act of war. I believe that's an act of war if you were to do that. And you better be prepared. I mean, if you do that, I mean, America's not going to mess around and allow that to go down without a fight. I'll tell you that. So, but going back to what they said, other American adversaries can use the power grid to affect and hurt everything. Hurt the economy, Jesse. It hurt civilization. It could kill people.
Well, hurting the economy, the banking system, everything.
Yes, everything.
It can target. But I think in that, we have to take that power away from them, not allow them to have that type of power over us,
How would you and how do we do that? Do we do? Are you saying this is maybe something Trump is currently trying to do with the
I think that's
tariffs and
stuff
the
that's being,
refunds?
yeah, I think that I mean, he's talked about, getting the energy, whether that's the coal, he kept pushing the coal facilities. I think that's something that they're getting
Coal,
up and going right away,
yes.
going back to the coal. How many nuclear facilities do we have?
Yeah.
We have enough to stimulate our own power. And then you also have, he talked about immediately the drilling, the oil that we have. So I think we have the access and the avenues to, you know, to create our own and not have to be subjected to those that would, have power or authority to, remove that from us. I think we can stand on our own.
Big question. Can America survive a catastrophic blackout? Can we survive it? I'm going to pose that question.
Party.
I'm
We'll all meet, everybody. Bring your grills, bring your
Yes. I mean,
bring your games, bring your kids. Let's have fun.
we would have fun. I think a lot of people would. It would also open the doors to thievery, robbery, theft, violence. Really bad things can also happen during that as well.
That can happen too, yes.
Yeah. So it can be catastrophic. Another interview that I saw, I thought this specific segment was very important, very shocking. And I'm going to play it. We'll get your comments and keep it going. I mean, blackouts, folks. There's so many different ways it can happen. So let's take a look at this final clip and get your comments on it. Here it is.
If you don't believe me how easy it would be to attack a power grid, drive around, find a substation, tell me how that's guarded.
Yeah.
The only thing that separates that from the external world is a chain link fence.
Right. And to that point,
most of them don't even have a padlock to get in.
And to that point, when we talk about people that have come across the border and bad actors, right? Anybody who is trained in subversion and sabotage, which is the meat and potatoes of unconventional warfare that you're talking about, whether that's from China, whether that's the sabotage expert from Iran or Al-Qaeda, the first rule of thumb is that kind of thing. Is like anything where you can disrupt at a strategic level with minimum risk and minimum output, right? And that's what you're talking about. When you're talking about these substations and other pieces of infrastructure, it's very, very vulnerable. And the fact that you've got all of this flood of potential bad actors who are trained in that, then to me, it's just mind-boggling that we're not leaning into that and saying, all right, well, if these things have occurred, then what can we at least do to mitigate at a state and local level, and at least have conversations that would prepare communities for this kind of thing as best we can. That's not happening. I mean, that's just not happening. There's not a conversation around this. And I think for me, as a global war on terror veteran who saw 9/11, who lost his Ranger buddy in the Pentagon that day, and who lost a lot of friends in the war that followed, it just seems criminal to me that we would put ourselves back in this position again where communities are so at risk and we would not have at least have responsible conversations on how to mitigate at this point.
This is, he deals with this. And he said there are people coming into the country. Interesting comment. How are people coming into the country, Jesse? Coming into the country who specialize.
The immigration,
I didn't say it. I didn't say it. I just said he posed a very interesting question.
Yeah.
These are former military people. They specialize, in this type of thing. This is what they do. And they can go after the power grid because they don't even have a padlock. They said it's only up, it's protected by a little fence. He's right. How many power grids have you seen driving on the road that I've seen?
Some of them don't even have the fences,
You're
to
right.
be honest. Like they
You're
do
right.
not even have fences at all.
Yeah. So it's a serious problem. And we need to look at this. We need to see, how do we protect it? It has to be a conversation. This is something that people need to take seriously, because if it goes down, a lot of people are in trouble if they're not prepared. Again, politicians need to be concerned. So my recommendation, I'm not in politics. I'm a host. If I do a show and I ask questions, the only thing I can advise is you are the constituents of your community and area. Write your local congressman and say, what is your mission and plan to protect and modernize our power grid? Protect and modernize our power grid. What's your plan? That should be something people get voted in for, because we're getting to a time where we're using so much of it, and it's only a matter of time before it collapses. I believe in many cities it will go down.
Mm-hmm. I think that's important, to be in contact with your local governments as well as other people, you know, to be working collectively with people in your community to figure those issues out. You know, what do you do if your area is attacked? What things can you have in place, you know, especially for your elderly, your families with small children, your families with adults or individuals with disability, your hospitals. You know, there's some things you have to be able to ensure to, you know, have those support services available for people. You know, so there should be somebody. Most communities have, you know, people who coordinate the triage, who are, you know, working with different groups in your area that are, you know, going to help coordinate things. So those are the people you kind of want to look for. But at the same time, you know, we have to be honest. I mean, we got to be leery of certain groups that are going to come in, you know, saying they're providing support or are there for support. You know, you should get to know people who are claiming that in your community, because sometimes those are the people, you know, that are not to be most trusted. I don't know another way to say it, but
no, 100%. And that's why I said you have to hold your local congressmen responsible. Ask them what they're doing. You want a statement. You want to see documents, paperwork. You want to understand what they're doing. They can't just let it go. You have to start preparing. This could be happen in 2 weeks, could happen in 10 years, but you have to be ready. So this is the topic of conversation that needs to be had. Would you agree?
For your governors too. Your governors are going to be coordinating some of that extra support when there's disasters or things like that in your community, and they should be able to supply a plan of action. That's important to be able to have and to know, you know.
Yeah. And like Rita said, we all are stronger together, helping each other. So what we can advise everybody is, sometimes you can see some of the comments, is reach out to emergency groups in your community, in your area. Maybe make and create one in your own neighborhood. But you need to start organizing. What would happen if the electricity went out? Do you have generators? Let's talk about that. Do you have them? If you don't, you need to start sourcing them out, where to get them, and get one. It's key. Other things like that. But Jessie, we went through. Listen, Jess, we talked about weather can affect the grid. We talked about aging the grid. We talked about the different energy. We're sucking all the resources out of the grid in this aging era. It's going to go out with all the cell phones and technologies and everything else we're doing. So we need to think about that. And then, of course, there's cyber attacks on the grid. So a lot of ways to attack the grid where there can be a blackout. However, is it possible there could be a blackout on purpose? I say this because I saw something many years ago. This was a huge conspiracy. And guys, you might know what I'm talking. I mean, it was a massive conspiracy. We were going to have 3 days. We were going to have 10 days of darkness. 10 days of darkness coming. This was in 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in 2025.
Yeah.
Not 10 days of darkness, but there was some Q movement, the conspiracy about Q, who was claimed to be someone who had inside knowledge and information. And this is what they had to say. Q says that 10 days of darkness, no social media or other media, April 1st to 10. What year? We're in April now. While the rest take place and the deep state is dismantled, remember the emergency broadcast system Trump set up on cell phones. he will be communicating with us through this emergency broadcast system. This is what Q says. I mean, this sounds bizarre, wild, and crazy. I gotta ask you. I gotta put you on the hot seat, Jesse. What are your comments? What do you know about this, and what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were first talking about this years ago when it came out, and speculating, was it going to happen? You definitely saw a lot of the community preppers, people encouraging, have food, have water, those are the most important, have candles, have matches, things that you can use for heat. Be ready, be stocked so that you have all that you need for a lot of people were saying the 10 to 14 days in case something were to happen. Should we always be prepared like that? Might be a good idea, but there's just been a lot of fluctuation in things. Everybody waits and we see things not quite happen like it's advertised. We don't have a year, we don't have a time frame. In fact, even the past few days with all the weather stuff and everything going on, you see some of those preppers again that are, saying this is it, all this stuff's happening, get ready, be prepared. I don't think it's bad to be prepared, but at the same time, I don't think that we should be fearful. One, part of the challenge is that even if you are fully prepared, you can't guarantee if something happens that you're always going to be at the right place at the right time. You could go to the store and all of a sudden you're stuck there. You could be picking up your kids from school and something happens and all of a sudden, that's where you're at and you may not have access to everything that you have prepared. So in that, I always encourage people, don't put your faith in the wisdom of men. Let your faith rest in the power of God. We serve a God that I often remember all the scriptures, Elijah, the Lord sent Elijah to a widow and her son during a 3-year famine. She baked him a cake with the last of her flour and oil, and the entire 3 years that jar of oil and flour never ran out. The Lord supplied. He supported the entire nation of Israel for 40 years in the desert and wilderness place, which is a very harsh environment. He would literally gave them bread from heaven. So, where are we putting our faith in these times? And, even if something happens, even if we're not at the right place at the right time, we can trust that, the Lord is going to supply our needs. The Lord's going to make a way where we may not feel like there is a way, so I think it's good to have some preparedness. Yet at the same time, don't let your faith rest in that. Let your faith rest in God and in his provision.
I agree with everything you said. Do not think about what men are saying. Trust in the word of the Lord and be prepared, guys. Never mind these conspiracies. I don't believe we're going to have 10 days of complete darkness. I got to be honest. That's just my opinion. I don't believe we're going to get 10 days of that. But I believe that the Lord is going to guide us and direct us all to do the right thing, say the right thing, and raise our spirits to be positive during these times. And I believe if there is any days of blackout, we'll be better for it. And those that are responsible for it will pay the ultimate price. Vengeance is a dish best served cold, and the Lord will have his vengeance, and we will bear witness to it. So, guys, be prepared. Here's a couple of things. Let's go through it. Flashlights and batteries. Guys, every household should have a few flashlights and batteries. That's key. Get out there and get some. Next, a ham radio. What is a ham radio? Get on Google, get on YouTube. There's some for $20. They go to $200. Get a ham radio. It's key to communicate with others and get information and news from people in the community. So get a ham radio. Guys, a first aid kit. That's a must. Every household needs to have this. Have some Tylenol in that first aid kit for injuries, headaches, stuff like that. You got to have a first aid kit. How about this, Jesse? Bottled water. You need.
I think that's most important. The water is most important.
Just you need bottled water. Come on now. If the sinks don't work because there's no energy, where are you going to get the water? You need.
Well, you could pray and ask the Lord to open a wellspring.
Yeah. Well, if he doesn't, this is why he got you to tune into this channel and see the show, because I just told you to get the water. So get that water, folks. Another thing, these freeze-dried camping food meals are fantastic. There's a lot of companies that you could get like 100 meals for like, a really good rate, or a couple of 100 meals. And they have like macaroni and lasagna and beef, chili, soup. These free-dried foods are available. Source them. Look out for them. Important. Canned goods, Jesse. Soup, spaghetti.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Pasta, tuna, different types of things, canned foods, because all you do is open it up and heat it up. This right here, very important. A portable stove. These things are cheap. You can get them at a Walmart. You get them anywhere. And those are propane tanks. And you can use it to warm up water, to heat up the food. You're going to need this stuff, guys. Or you're going to need a barbecue. If you have a barbecue with some gas tanks, have an extra gas tank, guys. Very key. Candles, honey, very important. Other things like that. Bear mace, spray for protection, things like that. But you need certain things. So make a plan with your family, with your friends. Who do you contact? How do you contact them? Some people in the community, some people in the neighborhood. Start prepping. It can happen. It may not. But we should always be prepared. But more importantly, we should give grace, praise, and glory to God Almighty for guiding us and bringing us the information we need. It's called discernment, and we thank him for it. Jesse, great show. Anything you want to add before we sign off?
No, again, I just encourage people. It's also a great time to coordinate if there's things, not everybody in your community can have. Maybe, getting together with people saying, hey, I've got this, I've got that. Knowing who has things and what can be utilized, and coming into agreement to really be community in those times if it's needed, is a great way to get through if there's something that happens. So, yeah,
100%. I like stay in the light. But I think the comment of the night, pretty funny here. A bicycle, get out of town.
That's it, make sure you've got your bicycle.
I love it. Great humor, fun, but considerate human beings in this chat. Stay safe. God bless. Guys, I want to thank you guys all for being here watching the show. We're going to do an after show right after this on Patreon. That means we're doing a Q&A. You can ask Jesse a question. You can ask me a question. We'll have a round table, have a little discussion. It will be great. But, Jesse, I got to thank some people because, there's some great, wonderful people that help keep the show going. So let me just thank a few people. Yes. Shout out going out to Vincent C. Vincent, thank you so much. A gentleman, because usually the power of women, man, I'm so lucky to have the most amazing women in the world watch, support this show. My co-host is a woman. Women are amazing, and thank you so much, women. Special shout out, Vincent C., a gentleman for supporting the show. Stephanie S., Audria C., Audrey, I hope I'm saying your name right. Thank you. And of course, the one, the only, the originator, and the wonderful Miss Lisa M. Thank you to all of you. Give them a thank you in the chat for their PayPal contributions to keep the show going on a Monday here, or it's Wednesday today. So on a Wednesday, we're back on Monday. It's going to be a great show. Guys, we'll be on the after show coming up next. So on behalf of Jesse and myself, I want to thank you all for watching. Get outside, get some fresh air, and give grace and glory and praise to our Lord and Savior. That's Jesus Christ. Thanks for watching. Good night, everyone.